When heroes pick sides, secrets come out, and one fight breaks the team apart, one podcast asks, could Asari have changed anything? This is Super Sorry.
Welcome to Super Sorry, the podcast where we dig into superheroes, superhero apologies, all the emotions, all the fallout, and all the chaos that could have been avoided with a halfway decent apology.
We're Todd and Amber, creative co-pilots and lifelong nerds, and deeply invested in superhero drama, and asking the question, why didn't they just talk about it?
Today, we're talking about MCU's Captain America Civil War, and my initial takeaway is that this entire movie collapses because Steve Rogers chooses loyalty over honesty.
Okay, that's your take on it, huh? All right, okay.
Yeah, he knows something that would devastate Tony, and instead of finding a way to tell him with care, instead he waits, and that delay ends up being super damaging.
I don't agree with that.
Of course you don't.
I think my thought is more that Tony's trying to repair things, and he keeps getting met with silence. He wants accountability. He wants people to admit harm, and Steve reads that as control.
Okay, that's a very generous read of Tony.
Well, I didn't say he did it well. He's trying, right? Trying counts.
I guess. I don't know, Todd. Basically, this is Steve's fault versus Tony's the only one trying here.
Yeah, I guess we're not on the same page.
Definitely not. But for now, let's figure out where it all goes wrong for Tony, Steve, and the rest of the Avengers. And if we miss something or get it wrong,
we are super sorry. Okay, listeners, did you pick your side yet? It's heroes versus heroes. Team Todd versus Team Amber. Team Tony versus Team Steve.
Okay. All right. Well, Civil War kicks off with the Avengers coming off years of saving the world and leaving a total trail of damage and destruction behind them. Now we have the government step in with the Sokovia Accords. And if you need information or a refresher on the Sokovia Accords, go back and listen to the episode before this one. It'll give you some really good information in a quick, bite-sized episode. But yeah, so with the Sokovia Accords, Tony signs, Steve doesn't. And right there, you have your first major fracture.
Yeah, things start escalating quickly. There's a bombing. We have King T'Chaka being killed. We have Bucky getting blamed. Steve goes into protect mode for Bucky. Tony goes into accountability mode. And instead of slowing down and actually talking to each other, they double down. And there's secrets being kept. There's motives getting questions. And every misunderstanding stacks on top of the other one.
Yeah, and by the time the truth finally comes out about Bucky, about Tony's parents, it's not a moment for repair. It's a total breaking point.
So who actually tried to apologize before the things got too bad? It's time for our apology audit. This is where we track down who said sorry, who tried but failed, and who somehow made things worse by doubling down.
We're keeping track of all the apologies and emotional sidesteps in Civil War, and we've chosen our top picks for the best apology and worst apology. So I will start things out with my super sorry, my fire pick for the best apology, which is the apology that was needed the entire film and finally came at the very, very end via a letter, so not even face-to-face, from Steve Rogers to Tony. And just for a little bit of context, this is, post their major physical battle in Siberia where they just go at each other and the entire relationship is broken after the battle. And Steve says in this letter to Tony, I know I hurt you. I guess I thought by not telling you about your parents, I thought I was sparing you, but I was really sparing myself. I'm sorry. So it finally takes accountability. It's a full acknowledgement of the harm that he caused him by withholding this information. And he actually shows the impact. It's not just explaining why I did what I did, but he's I thought I was doing the right thing. And obviously I made the wrong decision because I know this really hurt you. So I'm glad this apology finally came, but it was really too late to stop the damage that it caused.
Yeah. I mean, for me, what's good about it is it's a reflection by Steve Steve to kind of think about, why he did what he did by not, giving Tony all the information about his parents being killed by Bucky. And upon reflection, I guess I was really sparing myself, not sparing you. So it was kind of nice to see that some, thought was why he didn't say what he should have said. And for me, that's kind of makes it a nice, fire apology, because he's having some reflection. It took some distance, but he's reflecting on that it wasn't really for your benefit. It was for my benefit.
Yeah. And he really took the easy way out for himself. Like, he chose what for some people might be the more challenging approach, which is very physical. He's protecting Bucky and he's putting himself really far out there versus just like taking on what is an emotionally heavy thing to like actually say, I'm sorry to Tony. So he did a whole lot of other physical stuff just to get away from what he eventually had to come back to say he was sorry.
Yeah, Steve is very ride or die for Bucky. And there's a lot to unpack here in the upcoming segments.
Yeah.
But for my super sorry pick, it's going to be probably the most succinct apology so far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And to set the scene, this is between Vision and Wanda. And if you remember early in the movie, Vision kind of has her pseudo held captive at Avengers headquarters for her own protection, basically. And that's because the Sokovia Accords has been just announced and it's kind of not on secure foundations. So they kind of want to make sure everything's going to be okay. There's no more big blowouts and mistakes and things going on by Wanda, kind of causing some collateral damage or whatnot. So she's kind of locked up by Vision, and kind of Tony's behind that too a little bit. And that's the scene. The scene is during the airport. There's a big battle between Team Tony and Team Steve. And after the battle is all over, they're kind of looking at the destruction. It's like, what's going on here? How did we get to this point? And Vision just goes up to Wanda and says, I'm sorry. And Wanda responds, me too. So they both apologize. They both understand the reason for the apology. It's very succinct. They're both on the same wavelength. They're on the same page. And for me, that's why it's my super sorry fire pick of the day. Just straightforward, get to the point. Everybody agrees. There's no reflection needed upon it. I'm just going to put that to bed and moving on.
Yeah. And that's like an apology in the moment. Like, that's so necessary versus this example I just shared, which is a very, very delayed apology. And it's interesting because it kind of lays or establishes the foundation of Vision and Wanda's relationship in the future, which is kind of cool.
And I think it's good you brought up the fact that something I was going to point out, which was my apology is the better super sorry fire apology because it was in the moment. And yours is like, at the end of the movie, after all the damage is done, I'm going to send you a letter. Apologize. It's too little, too late. So if it was done at the right time in a more succinct fashion, maybe it would have been taken better. But that's why mine, short, sweet, to the point. Everybody agrees and moving on. That's why mine is the super sorry pick of the day.
Okay, I begrudgingly agree with you. Because I do think an apology, a well-meaning apology in the moment can do much more repair than a very delayed apology, which, like, when you see the scene where Tony's reading the letter, it's not like he's like, okay, everything's hunky-dory now.
No.
He's still pissed and frustrated, and he's still hurt because the thing was never addressed in a timely fashion. And this is after like physical warfare between the two. So maybe I shouldn't even say begrudgingly. I will happily give you this top pick for the best apology.
It seems like Tony's thinking like too little, too late when he's reading this letter. He's not happy about it. It's not really solving any problems.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't solve anything. Though at least an apology finally came.
And what's going to your sorry, not sorry? What's your misfire?
Yeah, so my pick for the misfire, sorry, not sorry apology, is another apology from Steve. And this time it's to Natasha. And this is when he refuses to sign the Sokovia Accords. And he just says, I'm sorry, Nat, I can't sign it. And the reason why I've chosen it as the worst apology is it's not even an apology. He's just like being polite almost. Not really sorry. He's just like, I'm not going to do it. And it's not really taking accountability. He's not even thinking about like what this means to their whole team. And I think kind of where I come back to with this, it just shows how the word sorry has really lost its meaning in a lot of situations. We use it as a filler word instead of like actually apologizing for something because you're not truly sorry. You're just like, oh, I'm not doing the same thing as you.
It's like checking a box. It's not really, a heartfelt and the scene you're talking about, I think, is right after the Peggy's funeral. So he's in a certain headspace too and whatnot. And it's kind of like the right time. But Natasha does say she's there to kind of just, not even for the Accords, but to kind of check in on him because she knows he's having a hard time, I'm sure, dealing with the loss of his love, Peggy. But you brought up a good point too about kind of checking boxes. And that's what mine is too, which is also Steve, because I'm Team Tony this time. So I'm glad we both agree Steve is in the wrong. So we're really going my way here.
I'm not going with my major thesis here.
Yes. So, and mine is from Steve. Speaking of Peggy's niece, Sharon. So that's my setup. And that's, it's kind of an interesting, whole scene with their relationship and everything too. And it's basically right after they're talking about, Steve and the Falcon kind of turn in their superhero garbs and all their equipment and whatnot. And, Sharon's a little like perturbed. Then she sees Bucky in the back of the car, the VW bug. And she says to him, he tried to kill me, the Winter Soldier. You're buddies with this guy. We have this romantic thing going on, but you got him in the backseat of your car. And, he tried to kill me. And he's like, yeah, sorry, I'll put it on the list. And it's like, what? But so like discounting her like, traumatic event. It's like, yeah, he's 100 things wrong with, things he did. And I'll just add it to the list. Sorry. Box check. So that's my sorry, not sorry, because it's literally, I say sorry, but not really. I'm just going to add it to the list.
Well, I think Steve overall is sort of our sorry, not sorry choice for this episode. Well, I want to fight for mine, but yours is better. I don't know what to say. Like, that's an excellent point.
Yeah.
He did try to kill her, and like that's not fair to her. Yeah. And he's just putting her in that situation. And he's like, whatever, my bad.
Yeah, I mean, she goes out of the way and gets like their equipment back and giving it to him. I think it's like under a freeway or underpass or where they're at, and kind of secretly handing the stuff over. Her job's on the line, or her job's basically over because she's kind of going against protocol. And then it's like, and she sees him that Steve's still buddy with Bucky, and it's like, not cool, dude. Not cool.
It's so not cool. Oh gosh, I feel like I'm really not fighting for Steve in the way that I thought I was going to be this episode.
We both know Tony's in the right here, so yeah. So our sorry, not sorry, misfire pick of the day is from Steve Rogers to Peggy's niece, Sharon, for sorry, I'll just put that on the list.
I guess you're the big winner today, Todd.
It's a good day.
Oh, well, up next, apologies that could have been, where we imagine the apologies that never happened and how an apology could have changed everything. So we've covered all the apologies that made it into Captain America Civil War, but what about the apologies that could have happened? Welcome to Apologies That Could Have Been, our little universe that we call the Super Sorryverse.
This is where we slow the moment down and give these characters a better line.
Because I think this movie in particular is packed with people who almost tell the truth.
And then choose literally anything else.
Yeah, there are secrets, old wounds, and conversations that happen way too late.
Or didn't happen at all.
Which is why this one hurts, because a few honest words literally could have changed everything.
Or at least kept it from escalating too far.
So we're taking a shot at making things better.
The way it should have been.
I'll start. My first apology that could have been is a twofold apology to Wanda Maximoff. Because in the aftermath of Lagos, she's really like fully blamed for all the damage in Lagos, for the people who were killed. And it wasn't entirely her fault. Like, the Avengers were all part of this battle. Yes, like, she used her powers in a destructive way, which seems like she didn't anticipate like what the damage would be and how that would play out. But the Avengers just kind of let her wholly take on the blame from the media, and they didn't really step up. Of course, now in the background, all the Sokovia Accords things are happening, but they should have acknowledged it and said to her something like, you shouldn't be carrying all of this. This isn't all on you. And they sort of dance around it, but no one actually says that to her.
I think there's a moment where Steve actually does say that to her specifically. Like you said, the issue is really, it's not a publicly kind of taken her, but in private, Steve does say, I think there's a conversation between Wanda and Steve, and she's like, oh, Steve, this is my fault. And it's like, no, it's on both of us. So there is some acknowledgement there, but I think what you're bringing up, which is the more important point, is that it's really not in a public.
Well, I was thinking more from the Avengers as a team perspective, that they're not saying collectively as a team to Wanda, this isn't on you. Maybe Steve is saying it, and I know Steve trained her up and everything, and so he's taking certain responsibility, but really the team should be saying it. And that kind of leads into the second part of this, which is Tony kind of totally buys into this confinement of Wanda. He essentially is restricting her freedom, and she's treated as a liability, not a teammate. And again, she just becomes a scapegoat for the whole situation. And so to me, like, I would have liked to see the whole team acknowledge, like, hey, this isn't right. Not just an individual person, if it was Steve. And then especially Tony for kind of like backing up this situation, which I know he did it under the premise of being protective of the public, but like the damage was already done. You know, that was more like a PR approach as opposed to having her out in the world didn't mean necessarily that more people were going to get hurt. So I would have liked to see something there. And I think that could have helped prevent this fracture in the Avengers.
I mean, there's a moment with another team member on Team Steve when Clint Barton comes and actually rescues Wanda from being held captive. And he kind of says to her, if you want to mope, go to high school. If you want to make amends, get off your ass. But it kind of backs up what you're saying because it's kind of not the right thing to say at the time. He's kind of blaming her like, you need to make amends. It's not like we need to make amends. I guess Clint wasn't really part of it, but he's really putting everything on Wanda instead of the Avengers that were there during the Lagos incident.
Yeah, and you just said the thing kind of like about being a teenager almost, right?
He says to her, if you want to mope, go to high school. Because she's like moping around, feeling sorry for herself. Like, grow up, man up.
I mean, I guess technically she is kind of a teenager and they do kind of treat her as such, but it's so problematic.
Exactly. I agree. It's problematic because it makes it seem like it's all her fault and she has to make amends. It's not like, stop moping. We need your help. Come help us, like, get this fixed. It's not just on you. It's like, help us also do this.
Agreed. What do you have for apologies you would have liked to see?
For me, I'm going to start off with Stan Lee here as the FedEx driver. I love the lines. This is like two of my favorite lines about the, stop moping. There also is this line from Stan Lee to Tony when he has a delivery at the end of the movie for Tony Stank. And he sees that he knows that the name is wrong, but he doesn't like correct it or anything. So he kind of doubles down and loves the Tony Stink. So it's a great line, but Stanley, need to correct who this package is actually for. So get to the right person. Tony Stark, not Tony Stink.
I don't know. I'm okay with that one.
I'm backing up my team. Tony needs to say his name correctly.
Since we're talking about Tony, I think Tony owes an apology to Peter Parker.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of teenagers who are put in
real teenagers,
bad situations or like putting a lot of responsibility on their shoulders when they're truly not responsible for it. Like he totally recruits them to come to like the battle at the airport. He exposes them to like high level conflict that he's not ready for. I mean, he's having a good time initially, but obviously not towards the end of the battle. And I think he deserves to give Peter an apology for exposing him to this very high level conflict. Like Tony almost treats it like a game. Like, oh, I want to win this game. Let me like rally my troops and I'm gonna, but that's not what this is. It's not a game.
Yeah.
And I think why this matters most of all is there's a real power imbalance here. Sure, Peter went along willingly, but Tony's in a position of power here.
Yeah. I mean, you're really finding my chink in my armor of my team Tony, and that's basically some Tony basically lying to his guardian, his Aunt May, taking him out of the state. I think that's called human trafficking or something. Like, that's not a good thing.
Oh, boy.
Right? So it's like, that's not a good Team Tony, stuff going on there. But so if we ignore all that and play it for laughs, it's not that bad. But I thought you were actually going to say about what Tony says to Peter Parker about his kind of like handmade Spider-Man outfit and calls it a onesie.
Oh, well, it sort of is.
He's trying his best, trying to get his outfit.
He's doing his best. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah, so for my next needs apology, again, I'm back on Team Tony here, and I think Pepper Potts needs to apologize to not only Tony, but the whole graduating class at MIT for not showing up. She's on the schedule. She's supposed to be at the presentation to have a nice donation given to MIT, but she doesn't show up. And, she's mad at Tony, so I get it, but she's not there just for Tony. There's a lot of people in the audience, men and women, that would like to see this strong, powerful CEO speak to their graduating class.
Well, first off, I think the filmmakers and the producers were just trying to save some bucks by not having Gwyneth Paltrow in this film, because they had a lot of other people and characters in this film, people they need to pay. But it's not like they weren't told she wouldn't be there, because there's this whole apology moment post his presentation where the people who were supposed to change the teleprompter apologized for not updating the teleprompter, knowing that she wasn't going to be there. So they knew.
But at the last minute, it didn't seem like
they could have made the changes. Yeah. That's what production is. You got to update it. You got to make the change, and the last minute changes. That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, but she didn't follow through in her RSVP of being there and speaking to the class.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you feel like some sort of apology was needed on like an institutional level for allowing Zemo's infiltration into the Bucky confinement? Like, he totally comes in to interrogate him, and he's not part of S.H.I.E.L.D. He's not part of the confinement effort. I know he fakes his credentials and kills someone in the process to do it, but like, that's a pretty bad oversight that you're not using the proper technology to verify the personnel you're bringing into a very high security situation.
Yeah, I mean, you would think they had somebody more, a known quantity on retainer that they're going to bring in for this high level situation. There's like, found some guy in the yellow pages from some psychiatrist to come and talk to him. It seems like they don't know what he looks like. He's not like in some sort of Mission Impossible different face mask thing. He's just himself showing up, with a different ID, and that's all it takes to get in there to be like the most crazy lockdown situation going on. Yeah, I agree. That's kind of an oversight there, miss, and nobody really takes accountability for it.
And, Bucky and others suffer for it. I suppose people would argue that maybe Bucky deserves it in a way, but yeah. I don't know. Yeah, this is a tough one.
Well, that's all my apologies that could have been. I mean, there's probably more there, but those are the big ones. Those are the ones that really matter to me. They could change the story, change the storyline.
Well, what about an apology from Vision to Rhodey? They're fighting at the airport. Towards the end of the battle, Rhodey is hit up in the sky and he tumbles down to the earth. And essentially it's because of Vision. And while Vision apologizes to Wanda when it's all done, does he ever really apologize to Rhodey? Like, Rhodey has the most severe physical consequences in the film of a major character.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I feel like there was not a direct acknowledgement of the harm that he caused him in the moment anyways.
Yeah, there's definitely some confusion in that moment, before, after, during, and the whole thing, where Vision is trying to knock Falcon out of the sky and kind of has a friendly fire and hits his own teammate, so to speak, and hits Rhodey, and that's why Rhodey comes crashing down. But Vision wasn't trying to hit Rhodey; he was trying to hit Falcon, and he misses, and instead gets Rhodey, and Rhodey comes down, hits the ground. Tony and Falcon are both racing, trying to get to him before he hits the ground. They both get there a little too late, and Falcon actually says, "I'm sorry," even though he didn't cause the damage, and then Tony blasts Falcon. So somehow Falcon is really, in the moment, in the scene, taking the blame because maybe Tony didn't realize exactly what happened or not.
Yeah, it kind of just goes with this whole theme of missed opportunities to say the thing in the moment, to take responsibility in the moment. I don't know, maybe there wasn't truly an opportunity here, but just lots of opportunities overall for our characters to apologize and take ownership, whereas many times they just delayed that or didn't do it at all. And that wraps up our time in the Super Sorryverse. All the moments where one honest sentence might have cooled things down or stopped this from becoming a full-out war.
The solution here wasn't bigger or stronger. It was simpler. Just honesty and someone willing to go first.
Up next, Damage Diary, where we tally the damage and destruction and touch on the innocent bystanders caught up in all the superhero chaos. Welcome to Damage Diary. This is the segment where we track all the things that got destroyed, who is stuck paying for it, and how bad things really got for all the regular people.
And in Civil War, the damage isn't just big, it's global.
This is the movie that literally creates the Sokovia Accords, because all the damage and destruction from all the previous fights in New York City, of course, Sokovia, all of it is finally catching up.
The entire cities are getting hit, the global leaders are taken out, governments are stepping in, and a very real question of who's responsible for all of this?
Which is what we usually ask in Damage Diary. But this time, it's the global community asking the Avengers that question. So let's recap the major damage in this movie. It starts out with the opening mission in Lagos, Nigeria. We have a busy city with a crowded marketplace and a fight that goes totally sideways.
We have Rumlow showing up, who's now known as Crossbones. He detonates himself with Captain America nearby, and Wanda tries to contain the explosion, but the blast hits a nearby building instead.
And the building blows out like an entire floor, and then the whole building looks like it's going to collapse, and it's just a mess. We've got emergency crews responding, major chaos and major damage.
Yeah, I'm no insurance adjuster here, but based on what we're seeing, that's easily tens of millions of dollars in damage with city infrastructure, private property, the kind of impact that just doesn't go away.
And that's just the buildings. More importantly here, there are civilian casualties, and it's public. Plenty of people witness it firsthand, so you have trauma associated with that as well. And it's the moment that finally pushes the world to say enough. Cut to the signing of the Sokovia Accords in Vienna.
Yeah, that's a very kind of formal event with diplomats, world leaders, and now probably an actual attempt at accountability is being had, depending on whose side you're on.
But in the middle of all that, we have another bombing. The building takes a direct hit, again, structural damage, fire, chaos. But again, most importantly, King T'Chaka is killed in the blast, along with other officials and staff.
Again, probably looking at tens of millions of dollars in damage to that government facility, international security teams and things with major reconstruction that's going to be needed. There's definitely real impact there. It's not just the cost. It's what sets all this off.
And this is the moment with King T'Chaka being killed that really hardens position. It pushes T'Challa, Black Panther, into the conflict, and it sends the Avengers even further apart.
Yeah, the story then kind of moves on to the airport in Germany, and this is a big fight here. We got a full-blown superhero standoff with enhanced individuals, joining in now. The airport isn't ready for this fight. I think that's about to ensue.
Yeah, we all see all sorts of new Avengers in the fight, which is sort of amusing, but it doesn't mean there's still not damage. We have planes impacted, equipment gets totally wrecked, runways are torn up, trucks change size, people change size. There's what Ant-Man thinks is a water truck that he throws, which is full of oil instead. All the airport buildings and infrastructures, all the things around the runway are destroyed, including a control tower that will definitely need repairing.
Ballpark here, probably hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. And that's not even counting the airport. That's obviously needs to be shut down after all that.
Yeah, with the shutdown, it can mean delays, lost revenue, all in all, just a giant mess to clean up, and probably a lot of very confused travelers.
And next up, we have Siberia. It's a remote facility out there in the frozen tundra, and it's already old and damaged and abandoned. And this one's probably a little smaller physically, probably the most contained of the damage and things going on in the bunker and the interior systems.
Yeah, but I think emotionally, this is where everything totally breaks. We've got the truth coming out. Trust is totally broken and gone, and whatever was holding the team together, it's done.
Yeah, so let's add this all up. We got Lagos, the airport, Siberia,
and Vienna.
And we got my rough estimate here, probably hundreds of millions of dollars. I guess we're talking here, push that towards probably $1 billion if you factor in all that long-term fallout that we mentioned.
And that's before you even touch things like legal costs, treaties, or rebuilding trust, which I think is probably the most expensive part of all.
And because Damage Diary isn't just about the numbers, it's about people, the families in Lagos, the workers at the airport, basically anyone who's been caught up in the middle of all this.
So with that in mind, let's zoom into the human cost. The people who didn't choose this fight, all the people just going about their day, and then chaos.
I guess I'll start us off. This movie has a lot of my favorite lines in it. Another good one here that I like. I always feel like this should be like maybe a tagline to our show here. And it's from the King of Wakanda, King T'Chaka. He's on the TV, talking with the UN. He's speaking to the audience, which is kind of the Avengers. And his line is, "Victory at the expense of the innocent is no victory at all." And that kind of really pulls at the strings to me right there, because that's really the whole point of all this with our superheroes and super apologies is it's not really a victory with all these innocent bystanders and things that are being hurt along the way.
I mean, absolutely. And I think this movie articulates those innocent bystanders in a way we haven't quite seen yet in an MCU movie. One moment that really stands out to me is the character Miriam Sharp. And this is the character who, after the MIT event, kind of approaches Tony in the hallways behind like the auditorium or whatever. whatever. And she is a government worker herself who lost her son, Charlie, in Sokovia. And it really puts a face on the collateral damage of the Avengers and is a really big moment for the story, too, because it influences Tony's stance then on this approach of the Sokovia Accords, which is really interesting because I think as we go through, especially the Iron Man movies, but also the Avenger movies, Tony takes a little more accountability each time. And in this instance, really puts the weight of the situation on his own shoulders to then make this particular decision. But just a very impactful moment by an innocent bystander who has lost a loved one. It's really devastating.
Yeah, I think, too, those two scenes, which is interesting, I guess, in comparison to what I'm going to bring up next here, is they're both kind of seen with King T'Chaka and the scene in the elevator. These are kind of seen as, nice people, good people, like, there's kind of, they're devastated by this loss and what's going on. But at this point, they're not even getting only hit by the good people, pointing things out to them. Even quote unquote bad people. We have Secretary Thaddeus Ross, played by William Hurt, who's even also going after them for these decisions. It's like they're getting it from both sides. The good guys, the bad guys, they're getting it from everywhere. And Secretary Ross says, when he's talking to the Avengers, during a meeting, it's like, frankly, you seem unconcerned about what you leave behind. New York, DC, Sokovia, Lagos, like even the bad guys are going after you. You're like, whoa, what am I doing here? It's one thing to be hit by some of these good characters and got powerful moments, but even the bad guys are going after you a little bit and twisting the knife. So you have to reassess kind of where you're at in life with that's happening.
Yeah, it is coming at them from both sides. Though I would say, like, bad guy, he's not a good guy, but is he a bad guy? He's a nuanced character.
Yeah, he was in the Hulk movie and kind of he was the antagonist of the Bruce Banner character. So he's the bad guy in the sense of in the second movie, the MCU, kind of the villain.
Is that why Hulk's not around? Because he just wouldn't even listen to them. The Sokovia Accords would never happen because he just would. I don't know. There's a whole big question mark there.
Girlfriend's dad. Yeah, it gets a little messy. Yeah.
It's a little messy. Well, so these are not technically innocent bystanders by any means because they are sort of major characters in the MCU. But Tony's parents, of course, are murdered by Hydra via Bucky. And in some ways, at least how it's played out in this film, they're kind of depicted as somewhat innocent bystanders. There's a whole lot more story there, I think. Certainly not saying they're deserving of it, but just want to mention them as more damage and destruction that happens in the film by the hands of superheroes. I guess they're not technically Avengers, but here we have Steve trying to go to bat for Bucky, and Bucky's the one that did this awful thing.
Yeah, another good example of why you should be on Team Tony. So I'll double down on that and go, this is something we brought up earlier, and this is Steve when he's trying to rescue Bucky from Bucharest. He's fighting all these police officers. He's pulling people out of cars. He's really kind of, they're not innocent bystanders, the security force that's trying to capture Bucky, so to speak, but they're kind of doing their job, and Captain America is doing Captain America things and kind of fighting them and doing some physical harm to them. So I think some apologies there, some, need to be had.
Yeah, this movie really blurs the lines between what's good and bad. The Avengers are no longer wholly good, especially Steve, Captain America, who some people kind of holds him up to a high regard.
What's also interesting about this, and I maybe should have mentioned it before, is Black Panther's also involved in the scene. Who's not fighting with the police officers? He's kind of catching a ride in the back of the car that Captain America's going, but he's not grabbing policemen and throwing them around and fighting them in the hallways or anything. He's kind of not harming the innocent bystanders, where Captain America is just, whatever gets in his way, and he's going to punch his way through it.
Yeah, what an elevated introduction of Black Panther, T'Challa. He loses his father. He wants to essentially avenge his father's death, but he does it in the least impactful way against other people possible.
Yeah.
It's just really interesting to see this superhero external at this point to the Avengers and how he operates in a very different way and a very honorable way, where he too has become almost an innocent bystander that's been impacted. He then just becomes, of course, a central character, but he certainly didn't go into the situations in this movie intending to move the way that some of the Avengers have moved.
Like you said, a great introduction of the Black Panther character.
Yeah, and a good alternative to the escalation we see between the other characters.
Definitely, yeah.
Well, that's Damage Diary, a reminder that even when the mission ends, the damage doesn't. Buildings can get rebuilt, airports will reopen, but the fallout fallout, that sticks around.
People lost loved ones in Lagos. Leaders were killed in Vienna. A lot of very normal people caught in the middle, not to mention the Avengers themselves.
Because damage isn't just physical, it's personal, and it doesn't reset at the end. Which brings us to the bigger question. What is this movie really saying underneath all the fights and fallout? Up next in our biggest takeaway. Captain America's Civil War isn't just about oversight or government control. It's about what happens when trust breaks and nobody knows how to rebuild it. Steve trusts people, Tony trusts systems, and instead of working through that, they just dig in.
And once that happens, every choice starts getting interpreted in the worst way, which makes accountability basically impossible because no one agrees on what they're responsible for anymore.
Which brings us to our biggest takeaway. Civil War shows us that being right doesn't fix anything if you're still hurting the people around you.
Because both sides think they're protecting something, but they stop protecting each other. And that's where the real damage starts. Not the fights, the distance.
The things they don't say when it would have mattered most. This is what escalation looks like. Not one big decision, just a series of smaller ones where nobody backs down and no one steps in to repair it.
You can win the argument, you can even win the fight, and still lose the relationship.
And that's what Civil War leaves behind. Not just a divided team, but a pretty clear reminder that if you don't deal with the hurt, it deals with you.
And that's Civil War. Lines drawn, the team fractured, and nothing really goes back to the way it was.
And what's wild is it doesn't fall apart all at once. It's all the small moments that don't get handled, the things that people don't say, or the things they don't say in time.
So we'll leave you with this. When was the last time being right mattered more than just being honest?
And what would it look like to say the thing earlier before it turns into something bigger?
If you're enjoying the show, follow us, leave a review, and share it with someone who loves a good superhero debate or needs an apology. And stick around for one last thing after the credits.
Next up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we're jumping into Doctor Strange, a story about ego, enlightenment, and learning things the hard way. We've got broken hands, ancient magic, and a crash course in humility. Until then, I'm Amber.
I'm Todd.
And we are Super Sorry. Super Sorry is written and hosted by Amber and Todd. Produced by a Super Sorry LLC. Music by Jam Studio. Special thanks to MCU Wiki, Wikipedia, and latest costs for serving as sources for Damage Diary. Your support helps us keep asking the hard questions and saying the hard apologies. Thanks for tuning in and sharing with friends. And if you're listening from Vienna, Siberia, or a government conference room, we are super sorry.
One last thing. Did you ever get the feeling when Captain America's writing to Tony and he has like a closing in his letter? Does this remind you of anything? If you need us, if you need me, I'll be there. I hear that in the movie and I think, where have I heard that before? Does that sound like something like from the A-Team? If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
Super Sorry is not affiliated with Marvel Entertainment, Marvel Studios, the Walt Disney Company, or Disney+. As of this recording, all Marvel characters mentioned in this podcast are the property of the Walt Disney Company.